All right, guys, just give me a moment. I have to go downstairs and we will start the stream. There was somebody working in the office, so I don't want to be distraction to them, so give me a moment. All right, happy Friday, everybody. Just give us a moment here as we exit the office. So this is the 200 Southeast Financial Center here. Beautiful office building. Now, I was looking out the window and I think there's some sort of event going on here at the FTX Arena. So we'll have to check that out. Tons of traffic tonight. But it is very windy, so I have to put on the microphone. So give me 2 seconds and we will get the stream started. We have a lot to talk about. Non-farm payroll numbers came out. We're also going to be talking about SBUX earnings report. I think we are going to get a lot of useful information from that. So please allow me a minute. I got to put the microphone in. Hey, Sophie M, what's up? Dave, I see you. What's up, everybody? I know we were having some issues with the audio last time, but let me know. Thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat if you guys can hear. Hey, Exploration is here. Good to see you. I see SME Media, Joseph Hardaway. Welcome, everybody. We are standing outside the 200 Southeast Financial Center tonight. Beautiful night in Miami. All day was about 80 degrees. Bright sunshine. However, it did rain pretty hard for like 45 minutes and then it stopped. Sort of crazy weather we have here in Florida. Hopefully we don't have too many issues with the microphone. It looks like we are good. The LT Prod is here, SME Media, as you guys can hear. Awesome, awesome. British Grey, Prince Ice. Cool. So everybody, we did get the non-farm payroll numbers out tonight. Or earlier today. Hold on, let me adjust the mic a little bit down. And non-farm payrolls came in hotter than expected. Now, here's the interesting thing, and we sort of talked about this last night, but the unemployment rate actually went up, which I guess is a good thing. If you're sort of along the lines of a Fed pivot. So one of the things that the Federal Reserve wants to see is the unemployment rate going up. I mean, unfortunately, that's what they want to see, but that's what they think is going to take to kill off inflation. So the unemployment rate actually went up to about 3.7% from about 3.5%. Now, economists across Wall Street were pretty much expecting about 210,000 jobs to be added, but we actually came in well above that at 261,000 jobs for October. And this is a view of the 200 Southeast Financial Center on this very windy night in Miami. But we are going to be headed to the Bayfront Marketplace. DA is here. Says, good evening, Tom. Good to see you, DA. Always a pleasure. right, sorry about that. The camera's a little bit out of focus there. Yeah, I heard about that. So Twitter had their round of layoffs, and I want to talk about that in just a minute. Now, here's what I think, right? Now, everybody's making a big deal about the Twitter layoffs, but I think we need to think about it like this. Twitter, as of now, according to Elon Musk, is losing about $4 million a day, okay? Their cash burn is $4 million every single day. And as we know right now, the interest rate environment we're in, a rising rate environment, it's just not sustainable for these companies to burn so much cash and lose so much money. So I think this is being politicized here because it's not just Twitter. Okay, it's not just Twitter that's unfortunately laying off people. It's a ton of other companies. I mean, we just talked about Lyft. I think they're laying off about 11% of their workforce. Amazon is also announcing that they're in a complete hiring freeze. So I think it's pretty standard across the board. Now, I know Elon Musk did come out with the tweet, and he said, look, I know I'm getting a lot of blowback because I just did a huge round of layoffs. But the problem is they're losing about $4 million a day, Twitter. That's their burn. So I think it's necessary. It's unfortunate, but it's definitely necessary if, you know, they want to sustain a normal business model. Hey, Abdul is here. Good to see you. JC Trades is what's up. Welcome, welcome. Chris Beeman is here. I see Melissa White. This is greetings, bro, and chat. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Kelvin is here. Welcome. Sweet Country Living in Michigan. Always a pleasure to have you. Daryl is here from Chicago, Illinois. SME Media says, I heard Twitter's layoffs were 50% of the workforce. I think they'll probably get up to that amount. Now, I don't know exactly when, but I mean, there's obviously going to be a huge purge. And so, to give you guys some context, I've been through this before. Okay, my previous company that I worked at went through a big merger, right, or an acquisition, M&A activity. And usually anytime there's some sort of M&A activity or new ownership, there's going to be layoffs and there's going to be people losing their jobs, unfortunately, because, you know, the new management comes in and they want to put their friends in place sometimes. They want to put the right people in place. So, I don't know. I think over the next coming days, and we sort of talked about this on last night's live stream. This is the Intercontinental Hotel here in Miami, by the way. Beautiful hotel. Has a really, really nice lobby and a pretty good view of a lot of the luxury apartment buildings here in downtown Miami. But we sort of talked about this yesterday, and I think what's going to happen is you're going to see all these articles, you know, bad-mouthing Elon Musk and the team. But at the end of the day, it's nothing personal. These layoffs are normal. They happen all the time. And it's what I like to call the fog of war. You know, the media is just doing this to get clicks and drive, you know, people to get at each other's throats. But, you know, it's unfortunate when anybody gets laid off, right? It's horrible, it's terrible, and I feel for these people. But I think the media is going to spin it in a way where Elon Musk is firing the woke Twitter people, employees, because he doesn't agree with their political views, which is just not true at all, in my view. Again, in my personal opinion, I don't think that's the case, because if you look at the macro environment, and I actually want to ask you guys in the chat what you're seeing in your world, right? I think that's one of the biggest values of the stream is we can get real-time data from not only across the United States, but from across the world. If you look at the macro view, it's not just Twitter that's doing this. It's pretty much every single big tech company, especially those that are losing a lot of money. And again, as we reviewed, as of now, Twitter's losing about $4 million a day. Okay, that's not a sustainable business model. It may be sustainable when interest rates are near zero, but it's not a sustainable business model when interest rates are going up each and every day. So I want to ask you guys, in your world, are you seeing at your particular company massive layoffs, or at least just cutting back on spending, right? Let's say if you're a salesperson, you probably have some sort of a T&E budget. This is the Ferris wheel over here, by the way, at Bayfront Marketplace. I don't know. What are you guys seeing in your world? I'd be interested to hear about that. Hey, Dr. Longas is here. Says the media loves drama. Indeed, it does. Joe Driver, welcome. Amar is here. Says good evening, Tom. Love. Yeah, it's definitely peaceful here. It's one of the things I love about downtown Miami. It is extremely, extremely peaceful. Herbert is here. Says Tom, 2 words. It's business. Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, we're going back to a period of normalcy, and we talked about this last night. It's not normal to be in an environment of artificially suppressed interest rates. So rates are going to normalize, rates are going up, and it means a lot of these companies that their business models worked in an environment of low rates, well, their business models don't work when rates are normalized. Otto is here. So hey everybody, good to see you, Otto. Welcome. Wow. So Ben Robinson says, Tom, 10% of my organization let go several months ago at Shopify. Whoa, that's crazy. Well, hopefully you landed on your feet. You know, anybody who's going through a difficult time with layoffs or anything, I'm here to help. If you want to send me an email, you know, especially if you're in the tech industry, something like that, or banking. Also, if you join our Discord, we have a section mainly dedicated towards career focus and career advice. Tucson says, Tom, I'm retired, so if I get laid off, I'll have to go back to work. Well, enjoy your retirement. Love that. Greg says, I agree. If employees is profitable, they will stay. Otherwise, they got to go. Yeah, and I mean, is what I think you're going to see, and I think this is pretty blatantly obvious. I really quickly want to show you guys. This is the 200 Southeast Financial Center. So this is where I work at, right across the street from Citi. And the 20th floor is actually now home to Citadel Securities. So Citadel Securities is a big market maker, quantitative shop on Wall Street, big hedge fund that was founded by Ken Griffin. They have now moved their headquarters from Chicago, Illinois, all the way down here to Miami, Florida. So in the interim, they are working out of the WeWork office. So I see some of those guys each and every day. But they're going to be building a massive, massive building right on Brickell Avenue there, which is going to be insane. Julia says, hey, Tom, do you think Elon Musk is compromised or that owning Twitter is a conflict of interest, given the fact that he relies so heavily on China with regard to Tesla? Now, I think that's an interesting question. So Julia proposes an interesting question, and I think... So here was sort of an interesting dichotomy that happened. Really quick, this is the 1000 Museum building right here. As we get close to it, you guys will be able to see it a little bit better. But as we are in the park here, you have a really, really nice view of the skyline of downtown Miami. And obviously all the way in the back, that big building lit up in purple is Miami Tower. One of my personal favorites down here. So there was a slight chance that Elon Musk was going to get out of the deal or get out of acquiring Twitter, because it was a very big possibility that it would be a huge, to Julia's point, conflict of interest. Because think about all the businesses that Elon Musk owns. It's not just Tesla. It's not just now Twitter. You think about Neuralink. You think about SpaceX, and I'm assuming there's probably some more that I'm sort of blanking on here, but you know, it comes a point where do you want one single person, the richest man in the world, owning a huge social media platform, an electric vehicle company, a solar company, you know, all of these things in the control of one guy? Is that a conflict of interest, and should the government come in here and bust it up? Now, I don't think so, but that was a lot of circulation on the street. And obviously that didn't happen. But I think if the government came in there and said, look, Elon Musk, you can't buy Twitter because you have too many interests in other parts of the world. Obviously, you know, Elon Musk, I think the only gripe I have with him, a criticism, is he plays too nice with China. But obviously China is the main growth driver, or I think is going to be one of the main growth drivers to Tesla. And that can sort of create some conflict of interests on a national level, right? But it's a good point. And from that point, there was a big merger arbitrage trade. We talked about this by billionaire Carl Icahn. So he was betting that the government wouldn't break up this acquisition. So he actually bought a ton of Twitter stock. I think to the tune of, I'm not sure how big the position was, but I think he accumulated the majority of the shares right at 33 bucks. And then once Elon Musk said, you know what, we got to go through with the deal, the stock went all the way back up, obviously, to the purchase price, and he made $500 million. So pretty good trade there. Mike C says, I don't see sinister intent from Elon like the other tech oligarchs. Yeah, I think right now, and I've sort of said before, is, you know, the fog of war phase where this is just going to get so politicized because, you know, Elon Musk is not the average CEO, right? Elon Musk is out there posting memes and doing podcasts, right? It's not like, you know, when I think of a CEO, I sort of think of like a Jamie Dimon, right? And not just to sort of revert back to banking. The reason why I say that is more along the lines of the acumen, right? Tonality, speech patterns, like a classic CEO. You would think somebody like a Jamie Dimon, you know, totally different personality type than an Elon Musk who's posting memes and battling back and forth with, you know, politicians on Twitter. So it's a very weird dichotomy that's going on. Very strange. Hey, George Hernandez says, what's the Aston Martin residence looking like? It's almost complete. And the thing is, I think the building is about 90% sold out. So we are going into midterm election. Paramount Tower right here. It is all lit up as an American flag, and I think if we wait just a minute, it'll say vote right on the tower. That's insane. Hey, JL is here. Good to see you. Says, hey Tom, long time no see. I've been busy working. Well, hopefully everything is going well for you at work, JL. Yeah, exactly. Mike C is like, I can't imagine Jamie Dimon lighting one up on Joe Rogan. Exactly what I'm talking about. So check this out. It says vote. So that's another big thing. You know, markets were down on the week, but we had a little bit of a rally day on Wall Street today. And I think that's because the dollar took a big nosedive. But did you guys also notice yesterday there was a very big piece of news? Well, I guess a very big event that happened yesterday that not too many people were talking about. And that was the Bank of England rate hike. So the Bank of England actually raised interest rates by 75 basis points. I think it was the highest or the largest rate hike since 1989. And this was the 8th consecutive rate hike. And the rate stands at 3% up from 2.75 a month ago. Wow, check out the Ferris wheel here. Very cool at the Bayfront Marketplace. Now, these rates are the highest since November of 2008. So think about that for a minute, because I know a lot of the times on the channel we'll always talk about the Federal Reserve, okay? But the thing is, you not only have the United States Central Bank, which is the Federal Reserve, but you have global central banks that are raising interest rates. So it's not just the Fed. These are going to be global bond yields that are going to be spiking here quite drastically. And I think that's something we need to be on the lookout for. Now, if you type exclamation point BOE in the chat, so BOE, abbreviation for Bank of England, it's going to drop an interesting video, and it's actually the recording of the speech that was given by Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey. And notice his tonality throughout the entire speech. And also, notice the choice of words that he uses. It was probably one of the most hawkish speeches I've ever seen in my life. Hey Mimi, this is Tom. CD rates are going up. I plan to shop some short-term CDs this weekend. Yeah, you know, when I was back in New York walking through the streets of Manhattan, I was seeing a lot of those advertisements too, as it relates to CDs and interest rates going up. You know what I mean? Just look at bond yields. If you think about, and this is the interesting thing that's going on in the stock market now, just think about it from a competitive standpoint. You know, a 10-year US Treasury yield right now is what, 1.1%? I mean, 4.1% on the US 10-year Treasury. I mean, that's significant. These are levels that we haven't seen in years. So the bond market is, as of now, getting a little bit more competitive in terms of somebody that's looking to, you know, maybe live on a fixed income than stocks that are continuously going down. So we'll see. It's a really interesting sort of dichotomy that's going on. Kevin Ramsey is here. What's up? Hey, Van is here. Good to see you, Van. So this is the Bayfront Marketplace here in Miami. Now, I think you can get a T-bill. Hold on 1 second. I want to show you guys this view of downtown Miami. You can see the 1000 Museum building and the Panorama building. Also the Freedom Tower too. Yeah, Mike sees the 1-year Treasury doesn't have far to go to be above 5%. Now, I think this is the most inverted the yield curve has been in quite some time, which is also a major signal for a recession. Now, where I'm most concerned is actually coming out of the United Kingdom. And Andrew Bailey, which is the governor of the Bank of England, was extremely hawkish and essentially came out here and said, it's going to be a rough couple years ahead. I think he said that verbatim. So if you have time this weekend, one of the things that I would do is watch that speech from yesterday, obviously when the Bank of England raised rates about 75 basis points. I would highly recommend you watch that because a lot of stock investors right now, and I'm seeing a lot of this activity specifically on Twitter, there's still a big presence of the buy the dip crowd. You know, oh, how much cheaper can a lot of these stocks get? Google is down 40%. You know, Apple, I think, is now down 30% from all-time record highs. You have a lot of these very high beta frothy growth stocks that are down 90%. You know, it's crazy. You have Twilio that just reported earnings yesterday, down 90%, if you could believe that. And a lot of these people are like, well, how low can these particular stocks go? And I think you just need to revert back to the macro view of things to say, look, it's not only the Federal Reserve that's raising rates, but these are central banks globally that it seems like they're jumping over themselves to raise rates. And that's very stock market negative in the environment that we're coming off of. Hold on, I want to show you guys all of the sort of the yachts and the boats here, the marinas. Because the environment we're coming off of is about a 14-year period that has conditioned a lot of these companies to say, all right, we're going to only focus on top-line revenue growth at the expense of profitability. And yeah, that may work when rates are at zero and money is cheap and the Federal Reserve is, you know, expanding their balance sheet. But when you have interest rates going up, and quite aggressively for that matter, it reverses course very quickly. And the market tends to dump all of these growth stocks. So be very, very careful about buying, quote unquote, buying the dip. I would wait for a true emerging uptrend. You know, one of the things we talked about is the semiconductor index, because we just had a broad swath of semiconductor companies report earnings. I would say it was mixed. The earnings reports were fairly mixed, but I would wait and I would watch for the SBUX, ticker symbol SOX, which is the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index. I would wait for that to turn positive in order to nibble on some of these individual semiconductor stocks. I mean, if you look at the SOX right now, if you have tradingview.com or something like that, very, very well below its 50-day and 200-day moving average. And I wouldn't touch any of these indices unless they get above their 50-day or 200-day. James Tiger is here, says, hey Tom, watching the VIX every day. I am holding some now because it is down 15 days in a row. Weird action. Yeah, I mean, you have VIX crashing and you also have stocks crashing too. I have a little bit of a bid, but I think it is, in my view, I think this is bear market rally. Prince Ice says Fed is definitely leading the interest rate hike. Isn't it worth a check up on China going the opposite? Well, I think the biggest, I would say the central banks that are going the most opposite direction is probably going to have to be in Turkey as well as Japan. I mean, the Bank of Japan is still doing QE for reasons I can't even comprehend. Obviously, there's a lot of factors into that. You know, population decline, you know, stagnating economic growth. But, you know, the thing that concerns me, to your point, is we've never had a global debt bubble that's this big. And we've also never had a period where global central banks are raising rates this aggressively with this amount of debt. That is very, very concerning to me. I'll give you guys one more look at the Ferris wheel here. Hey, Salazar Flores, what's up, Tom? I like your videos. Thank you so much. Appreciate you watching. Skyline 220 says Japan has severe deflation. Yeah, and I think the main issue with Japan is the population issue. And speaking of Elon Musk and Twitter, that's one of the things that Elon Musk has been warning not only to the United States, but globally, is population decline. Man, this is an awesome, awesome thing they did here. American flag colors. And it says vote at the top. Hey, Sally is here. Good to see you. Welcome. All right, let's head out. We will head over to the Brickell area. Golden's Dawn, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Now, I think there's a big event going on at the FTX Arena. Maybe a concert or something, I'm not quite sure. Skylines, do you see the correlation with 2008? It is highly correlated. That would mean a major crash to come in the next couple months. Yeah, I think I see the correlation between the overall decline in the indices. That I do see. So if you overlay the 2008 stock market decline with the S&P 500 price action right now, it's very similar. Very, very similar. Now, I don't think it's going to be exactly like 2008, but I think we see some similarities. If I had to guess, I think this bear market is probably going to be longer in duration, and it's probably going to hit a lot of these growth stocks a lot harder than, you know, energy, consumer staples, things like that. And here's an interesting thing. a lot of people are unfamiliar with the bear market that stays in a bear for multiple years, right? I mean, even 2008, right? It was about a year and a half of declines, and then we sort of had a V bottom right back up because the Federal Reserve stepped in here and provided stimulus, right? Unprecedented stimulus. But do you think people are prepared for a multi-year or even a decade-long sort of sideways market? I don't think so. If you had to ask me, I don't think so. Fictionarius here says, hey, good to see you. SME Media says there is a concert going on. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the traffic was insanity. Barry Bell says, good evening. What's up, Barry Bell? Welcome. So speaking of, I guess, a decade long of chop, did anybody see the Stanley Druckenmiller interview that I think he did with, I'm forgetting his name, I think it was Andrew Ross Sorkin of CNBC? Now, Stanley Druckenmiller is sort of predicting a similar stock market to the likes we had in the 70s going into the 80s, which the S&P was pretty much range bound for that entire decade. You had rallies and you had declines, but no material price appreciation. And that was due to the stagflationary environment that we had, which, I mean, if you look at the inflation rate right now, what is it, 8.5% in the United States? In the United Kingdom, I think inflation is 10.5%. Can you imagine that, living in a world with 10.5% inflation? Well, that's exactly what they're dealing with in the UK, prompting the Bank of England to once again raise rates by 75 basis points. But Stan Druckenmiller's argument is that, look, he thinks that inflation is going to persist for longer than expected, and he thinks that it's going to take the Federal Reserve some time to get inflation under control and back down to their target level of 2%. So it's possible, I mean, it's very possible that we get, 5-10 years of choppy sideways market. I don't know, what do you guys think about that? You guys think it's possible that we could have about, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years of sideways choppy markets? Hey, Lemonade is here. It says, love the flags. Good to see you, Lemonade. Abdullah, what's up? Skyline 2020 says, I do think the Fed will become dovish and pivot once unemployment numbers start to increase, which should happen soon. Well, we did get unemployment numbers today, right? So we got non-farm payrolls, and non-farm payrolls actually came in hotter than expected. So I think the consensus on Wall Street, or economists in many of the investment banks that were surveyed, it looks like there's going to be a Starbucks coming here to Bayside Marketplace. This is the front of Bayside Marketplace. But consensus was about 210,000, I think, payrolls. And I mean, my God, I mean, we blew that out of the water. I think payrolls came in at 267,000. Now, my guess was 215,000. So we came in at 267,000. But here, I guess I feel bad saying good news, but for all of those that are, rooting or are banking on a Fed pivot, the unemployment rate did tick up to 3.7% from 3.5%, right? But here's the thing, the labor force participation rate did decline. So I think that the Fed is going to look at this information and say, look, payrolls are still strong. The unemployment rate is really not moving in the right direction as fast as we would have liked it. So we are going to continue to raise interest rates, maybe at, let's say if they just go back down to doing 50 basis point hikes, they're still going to probably hike for longer. It's not necessarily I would say, the size of the rate hike that sort of matters. It's the duration and what is definitely ultimately the target rate. And Fed Chair Jerome Powell was pretty clear when he came out and said, look, rates are going to have to go higher in 2023 than we originally had planned. George Hernandez says, hey Tom, did you see from the Next Miami that they started construction on the Waldorf Astoria building? Yeah, I did see that. That's going to be insane. So for those of you who don't know, the Waldorf Astoria building is going to be over 1,000 feet tall. Can you believe that? That's going to be nuts. Hey, Mingos Ism, thank you so much for the $5 donations. Says, hey Tom, I was at Bayside Mall last month. I love Miami from Brooklyn, New York. Hey, awesome. I'm glad you loved Miami. Yeah, it's a great place. Downtown Miami and Miami in general is awesome. Especially if you're coming from New York, right? The hustle and bustle in New York. It's nice to get a little bit of a break, I would say. Ron Young says, newly subscribed for a couple months. I'm 71 and follow things closely. Great channel, Tom. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. God bless you. It's 71. God bless. Love that. Now, this is a newly constructed ultra luxury apartment building here in downtown Miami. But here's the thing. For those of you maybe who are from Miami or just visiting, something like that, for some reason, to me, the skyscrapers in Miami, Florida look bigger than the ones in New York. Not because they are bigger, but because Miami sits literally below sea level. So it's very flat land here. If you're in New York, you could be in some parts of Manhattan, right? I remember, going to City College and riding my bike up those ridiculously steep hills over there, headed into Harlem, like Washington Heights, Hamilton Heights. It's all flat here, right? There's virtually no hills. And we're literally building these buildings on the water. So it just looks almost weird. It looks strange. I don't know how to explain it, but I'll take you guys to the FTX Arena. But once again, thank you so much for your $5 donation. Love Brooklyn, New York. I actually used to live in Greenpoint. It's one of my favorite places. Israel King says, I'm moving to Miami next year after college graduation. I'm from North Carolina and have family that lives in Orlando. Ah, nice. North Carolina has been a big hot spot for a lot of tech companies and just people in general moving too. JR is here, good to see you. But you know what, everybody? Out of all these crazy buildings that they built here, I'm going to show you guys a close-up look of the FTX Arena in the Paramount building, just because we haven't had a lot of people see it before. But my favorite one is the Freedom Tower. Now it's not as new and it's not as flashy, but this is by far my favorite building in downtown Miami. I'll show you guys a good look. It's all lit up in red, and this is what America's all about, my friends. This is what capitalism is all about. The land of the free, home of the brave, right here. This building has a lot of historical important reference in the United States. This is where the vast majority of Cuban immigrants first came to America, right there. So it's an awesome building. I love that they kept it. It's actually, I think, a museum. You may be able to go up into the tower, which I have not done. I would like to go though, but it's one of my favorites. I think it looks awesome. Yeah, Dr. Longus says lots of us moved to the Carolinas. Wow, check this out. You have the Freedom Tower here, and then you have the Paramount building all lit up with the American flag colors. I think that's a pretty good shot. It's an awesome shot. Now, fun fact about Miami, Florida. I think here in Miami we have the most dense population of Cuban immigrants So chances are, if you come to Miami, you could probably find some really good Cuban restaurants. Up in North Miami Beach, where I tend to hang out a lot, there is a ton of good Cuban food. Hey, Paul Tricky says 9.7 out of 10. Thank you, Paul. So this is where the Miami Heat play. But tonight, there's a concert going on. And I think the concert is going to get out in maybe like an hour, and it's going to be crazy. Because when I went to get lunch, or dinner, I guess you could call it, this place was mobbed with people entering the arena. So that means in an hour, it's probably going to take, you know, an extra 30 minutes, 40 minutes to get home. All right, one more shot of the Paramount building, and then I'll take you guys to Brickell. But just to quickly recap, the main topic for tonight's stream is the Bank of England. They raised interest rates by 75 basis points. That is the largest rate increase since 1989. And this was the 8th consecutive rate hike. Rates now sit at 3%, and this is the highest level that rates have been in the UK since November of 2008. So if you want, and I would highly suggest you do this, if you type !BOE in the chat, it's going to drop the link to the speech that Governor Andrew Bailey gave. And it's very important that you guys pay attention to the specific words that he used, because this is probably the most hawkish speech I've ever heard in my view. All right, let's head the other way. Costa says, hey Tom, do you play video games? I do not. What about you? Brian says, hey Tom, happy Friday, and happy Friday everybody. Yeah, that's right, it's Friday. Happy Friday everybody. Trust you're having a good one. Yeah, so SME Media makes a good point. Says, does this mean the Prime Minister is going to stick around? Well, here's the issue that I see for the Conservative Party there. And I'm really not a political expert in the United Kingdom. But here's what I'll say. Now, Governor Andrew Bailey came out and said pretty directly, let's just say, that we're probably going to fall into a recession. And to use his exact words, this is what he said. I gave you guys the link, but he said, quote unquote, it is going to be a very tough road ahead. He says the sharp rise in energy prices has made us a far poorer nation than before. And I would agree. I mean, here in the United States, we're a little bit more sheltered by that. Now, if you think the price of gasoline is high here, I mean, just go over to Europe, some of the European countries, and see how high it is there. Obviously, because they're closer and more dependent on Russian oil, unfortunately. And the Russian invasion of Ukraine is not helping anything with these energy prices. So I think that's something we need to watch. And just keep that in mind if you're also looking to buy, you know, some emerging market stocks. Yes, I think there are some bargains to be had here, but you know, I would wait for a material uptrend, because if things get as bad over there in the UK that I think they might get, I think we still have some ways to decline here, but hey, Two Wheel Pines says, appreciate the streams, Tom. Hope you're well. Haven't gotten to check in as much as I'd like to. Thank you so much, Two Wheel Pines. Appreciate you, my friend. And happy Friday. Hopefully you have some nice plans for the weekend. Yeah, George Hernandez, his Freedom Tower is beautiful in both New York City and Miami. Although my favorite is the Chrysler Building in New York. That's a good one. That's a beautiful one too. Now here's something interesting, because we heard from StarBucks, ticker symbol SBUX. And I think it's important to talk about how they reported earnings, because they blew it out of the water in my view, by the way. But sort of here's my thought process and here's my track on that. Now, we've been talking about the luxury market doing very well. We talked about LVMH, Moet Hennessy. We briefly spoke about Hermes, the very famous handbag maker. A lot of the luxury goods makers are doing exceptionally well. And I think I've pretty much laid out the case on why I believe that. But why do you think that Starbucks is showing some strength here? Oh, that's right. So, okay, really quick segue here. I've been seeing a lot of Brazilian protesters. I guess there was a big presidential election in Brazil, and I don't know the entire story on it. I'm not Brazilian, but I hope everything works out over there in Brazil. But I've been seeing a ton of these protests. Well, I guess not really protests, just gatherings. Anybody maybe from Brazil here that could fill us in on what's going on over there? I'll give you guys another quick shot of them. For some reason, I think the Brazilian flag looks amazing. Maybe it's just the color is green. Anyway, I think this is a big concert going on over here. So, Starbucks had record same-store sales and record sales in general. So earnings per share came in at 81 cents versus the 72 cents that Wall Street analysts expected. So they beat on the bottom line, but they also beat on the top line too. Revenue came in at $8.41 billion. Wall Street analysts were expecting $8.31 billion. So if you talk about just net sales, was up about 3.3% as global same-store sales increased 7%. And so this is despite the fact that prices at Starbucks are up roughly 6% year over year, right? We'll wait till this guy goes. So it seems as if this could be one of two things, and this is sort of how I hypothesize this, in my view. Number one, I think people want to get out and go places now that the pandemic is winding down here in the United States. And I think Starbucks is one of those places. You know, you could go out, grab a cup of coffee with coworkers or your friends. So it's something to do. And I think after being locked down during the pandemic for 2 years, people are more inclined to go out and do things. Now, it may sound weird to say, oh, Starbucks is something to go out and do things, but for $10 to $15, instead of spending $50, $60 on a big experience, just meeting up with some buddies at Starbucks, you could sit down, it's nice, you could work. People I think are inclined to do that. Also, on the other end of the spectrum, if you look at the data, Starbucks customers tend to be of a higher income. And if we sort of go back to the thesis that luxury goods and luxury sales are doing well, it's no surprise that Starbucks is doing exceptionally well for the environment too. Hey, Joseph Hardaway says, Tom, I wasn't surprised to see Starbucks doing good for years to come worldwide, even as they expand overseas. Lewis's and the Supreme Court is... Okay, maybe this was for the Brazil thing. Let me just go back and read your comment. Felipe says each half of the Brazilian population voted in each of one of the candidates in country. Oh, like a divided government. Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about it. The only thing I could say is I hope everything works out for our Brazilian friends, because definitely not something good you want to see. But I will say there is a big Brazilian population here in Miami. So I had to take the bus through Sunny Isles Beach, and the entire way to Sunny Isles Beach was flooded with Brazilian people with Brazilian flags, everything like that. Okay, so a little bit of anecdotal data here. I actually went to Starbucks today. I got a hot cup of coffee I know it's strange to say that, but for some reason I was craving a hot coffee today. So I went to the Starbucks in Brickell. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna order ahead, because I usually, if I take a client or I meet up with a friend, I'll usually use the application where you could order ahead. But I'm like, nah, you know, I'll just go in and I'll order. It was so crowded in the place. Like, I mean, the place was overwhelmed with people. Now, this is just one location, but anytime I'm in New York City, it's almost the same thing. Now, here's what I would like to see, and I don't really get an opportunity to see this because, you know, I live in major cities like Miami and New York. If anybody lives near a drive-through Starbucks, what are the lines looking like? Is it wrapped around the block? Any insight on that? And the reason I ask is because back in the day, one of Peter Lynch's main thesis for making all his money on Dunkin' Donuts was taking his kids to Dunkin' Donuts drive-through and counting the amount of cars in the drive-through lane. This is the Metro mover here. John says, I buy beans, grind them, make black coffee. I make a better cup than Starbucks. I bet you do. Two Wheel Pine says yes in Denver. Wow. So big lines for the drive-thru there. Yeah, I mean, Starbucks stock was up, I think, 2% after hours. Now, it's interesting because we talked about Wingstop. And a lot of these sort of fast casual restaurants tend to be doing rather well. So maybe the thesis is this. Maybe the thesis is consumers want to go out and spend, but they're being a little bit more price conscious. So what can they do for under $20 that they could sort of, you know, spend 2 or 3 hours to go out and do something fun? You know, maybe that's why Wingstop is getting a nice bid. I mean, maybe that's why Starbucks is getting a nice bid. Every time I walk into one, it is absolutely packed. Hey, Zozo Bob's Metro Mover is being extended to South Beach. Zozo Bob, I cannot believe that, man. That's going to be the best thing ever. So one of the reasons why I don't stream from South Beach is because it takes forever to get home. Because obviously South Beach, you got to cross the water. So once they extend the Metro Mover to South Beach, I mean, it's going to be game over. It's going to be fantastic here. Chris Hensley says, we will know if we are screwed if Chick-fil-A drive-thru is empty. You know, I don't like Chick-fil-A for whatever reason. I think their food is really, really overrated. That's probably gonna get me in trouble, but I think it's a bit overrated, Chick-fil-A. Tariq Khan says Brazil has the op to be a world power right now. Hopefully they don't squelch in the corruption. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know too much about Brazilian politics to really make a comment on it, but maybe I'll have to read up on it a little bit more. Troy Atman says bad take, Tom. On what, the Starbucks or the Brazil? Oh, or Chick-fil-A? Yeah, Chick-fil-A, maybe it's a bad take. Or maybe all three. All right, so let's head over the bridge here. I think we're gonna see some really nice boats, and I'll tell you why. Usually in the winter, or headed into the winter months, a lot of the yachts start to come down to Miami. But during the summer, there's not a lot of, I would say, really nice, cool yachts here. But in the winter months, we start to get a ton. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys remember last year, we had that, I believe he was a pharmaceutical billionaire his yacht, and he had a helicopter on the top of the freaking thing. It was insane. Really quick, I always appreciate this American flag here. It is absolutely massive. And when it's really windy, it just looks unbelievable. Big fan of American flags. My second favorite sort of American flag display is in New York City, right across the street from Rockefeller Center. All of those American flags that are hanging off the side of Saks Fifth Avenue, that is a money shot for anybody that wants to go there. SME Media says people know what to expect from Starbucks. No surprises. Maybe people want consistency. Well, here's an interesting thing about Starbucks. This is what I'll say about Starbucks as a company. Howard Schultz is an absolute genius CEO. Now, does anybody notice every single time that Howard Schultz is not CEO, it starts to go south? But once Howard Schultz is back in the mix, things start to turn up again. Did anybody notice that? Now, I'm not sure if anybody read Howard Schultz's books, but I would highly, highly suggest you read them, especially if you want to be a CEO in the future or you're an entrepreneur. Because, let me just cross here. I think Howard Schultz is by far one of the most effective CEOs ever, by far. His management skills, his people skills are unmatched. And in the book, one of the things that Howard Schultz says, is they wanted to make Starbucks more than a coffee company, right? You have thousands and thousands of coffee companies throughout the world, but what he really wanted to make it is a brand, number one. And number two, if you read the book, he said he wanted to make Starbucks the third place that people go, right? So back in the day before, before you had COVID and all this craziness where you had to stay inside, Starbucks said, or the CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, he said they want people to go to work, they want people to go home, and then they want to have that in-between place, which is Starbucks, where people can come, have a cup of coffee with friends, family, and sort of relax. And I think he did a really good job with that. Now, if anybody's been to like one of the reserve roasteries in any of the big cities like New York City, LA, those stores are not even like coffee shops. They're almost like nightclubs. It's very strange, and strange in a very good way. I think there's a lot to learn about Starbucks. I think the biggest thing that I've learned from Howard Schultz is out of a simple product with very good branding and I would say very good psychology too, you could build massive empires. Also, the thing I appreciate about Howard Schultz is he tends to treat his employees very well. I had a friend back in New York that essentially put himself through college just being a barista at Starbucks. So they have great benefits, they pay their employees really well. So great quarter from them. Yeah, Dr. Longus says Schultz is a great CEO, I agree. Sean Conley says, Tom, do you think the 1920 and 1980 recessions are the best historic crashes to look at for what to expect in the future? I definitely think on an interest rate policy basis, right? Because 1980s, who do we think of? We think of Paul Volcker, who had to raise the Fed funds rate to 20% to finally get inflation under control. But in the process, what happened? The unemployment rate went to 10%, which is not good. Now, here's the thing that I'm very sort of on the fence about as we walk. I'll take you guys up to this yacht. Let's see how cool it is. Right now, I'm giving it an 8.3 out of 10. I haven't seen the front of it yet. You know, what is the main difference now between 1980? I think it's the level of debt we have, not just in the United States, but globally. So I don't even know how it's sustainable if we were to do a Paul Volcker movement. I think that would almost create a scenario where if we don't raise the debt ceiling, we could default on our debt. and that would be cataclysmic. Wow, this is a massive, massive boat. And it looks like they're bringing all types of food on there too from Whole Foods. Maybe they're having a barbecue. Dark Horse, we gotta time you out for that one. Just gotta chill out a little bit. Hey, Paulette is here. It says happy Friday, Tom. Good to see you. Thank you, Paulette. Yeah, SME Medius is another difference is the gig economy too. No Ubers in the 1980s. That's a good point. Very good point. Gina Thomas says, Tom, I think you missed my question. Would you get an e-bike in Miami? You know, I'm thinking about getting just like a regular bike. I don't know about an e-bike, but I think I gotta get a bike. I have to. Or maybe one of those electric scooters I'll get, I think. Hey, Christian S., good to see you. Welcome. We'll wait till the boat pulls off. I think it'll be a cool view, and then we'll head out here. Now, I wanted to say one more thing about Starbucks' earnings report. And I think this is going to be very important to pay attention to as we look at other companies that have exposure to China. Excuse me, China specifically. I gotta get some water. Did you notice the only sort of bad part, I would say, in the whole earnings report was same-store sales cratered in China, obviously due to the zero COVID policy. Now, they did say on the earnings call that they are optimistic about the reopening of the economy in China and that they don't think it's going to be that much of an impact to the business in future quarters. I'm not so sure about that. And this has sort of been my criticism from day one. And the criticism isn't to say that China is doing the wrong thing with locking down the economy. It doesn't really matter my opinion on that. If we're talking about business, right? If we're talking about how to run and operate an entire business, it's very, very difficult for business forecasting and to make key investments if the government continuously comes in and shuts your business operations down, right? So I think that's still going to continue to be a headwind for Starbucks, as it was in this recent quarter. So please keep an eye on that. Really quick, this is the Aston Martin building. Almost finished. This building looks absolutely insane. And I think this is going to be completed later this year. So Gina Thomas, if you had to recommend an e-bike, what would you recommend? My issue is that continuously charging it, I'm not sure what the range would be. Because I would need a range of at least 30 miles maybe. Hey, Google is here. What's up? Good to see you, my friend. John says, hey Tom, are real estate prices cooling in Miami? They are, finally. And they're cooling all across the United States too. And I think they're gonna continue to cool. Because if you think about it, if you have 7% interest rates, the people who are looking at $450,000 homes are now effectively priced out of the market, right? I mean, maybe you could afford, quote unquote, a $450,000 piece of property when interest rates were 3%, definitely not at 7%. So what I think is going to happen, and this has already been happening, is existing home sales are cratering and rolling over. And then the next step is the price reductions. And what we were talking about during our New York streams is I constantly get emails almost every day about price cuts, right? Specifically as it relates to 1-bedroom and 1-bathroom apartments. And I'm starting to see the same thing now here in Miami too. You know, $20,000 price reductions, $50,000 price reductions. I wouldn't say to the extent that I'm seeing it in New York, but I think it's coming. Hey, we have the FDNY here, the Papa Smurf OG. What's up? This is beautiful buildings in Miami, Tom. Thank you, Papa Smurf. Appreciate you. Western Mass Dave says, Tom, how many floors do you know? You know, I'm not too sure. But here's the crazy thing. So this is going to be the main entrance, right? So you could drive your car right here. You know, if you could afford a place in this building, you probably have a chauffeur or something like that. But check out how amazing and how unique this building is. Now, the most unique thing about this building is I believe it's about 90% sold out, and it's not even finished yet. And I think that's the same story with the other mega super tall building, the Waldorf Astoria. That's going to be 1,000 feet tall, so 1,100 feet, I think, to be exact. They just broke ground, I think, about 2 weeks ago here in Miami on that building. And I think 80% of the units are already accounted for. So, and they didn't even break ground yet. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. Now, another nice building that I really like, nice Tesla making the turn here, is the Epic Hotel. Really, really nice views of the entire city here. Hey, John says, thanks. I live in the Brooklyn area. I want to buy upstate New York. Second home, see the prices drop finally. Yeah, I mean, so where in upstate New York particularly? I think if I were to buy in upstate New York, maybe Ossining or Ossining. Hey, FredX, good to see you, my friend. This is the JW Marriott Essex House. Or not the Essex House, JW Marriott. James says, this is where you stay, it's always nice. Yeah, so Rich K says, Tom, some of the home price increases were due to a lack of inventory, partly because of the lack of construction during COVID. The Fed rate increase has done nothing to solve the inventory problem. It's very true. You know, and actually it's done a lot more to make the inventory problem worse. And we know this from the housing start data. So housing starts are way down, and also permits are way down too. Now here's an interesting thesis for a potential big boom in inventory. And you guys let me know what you think. This is the Miami Tower, by the way, right outside of the Wells Fargo building. Now, a lot of these single family home builders right now are stuck with a lot of supply. That could be 200 units, it could be 300 units, it could be 50 units. But what they're seeing is a lot of customers backing out of their existing contracts to purchase these units. Now, if that's the case, here's the problem. The problem is these homes could either be dumped onto the market at a significantly reduced price, or, which I think is actually more likely to happen, I think what you're gonna see is, ooh, I hope these ladies cross the street. What I think you're gonna see are these single family home builders doing big block sales to institutional investors like big private equity firms. Maybe they would go to like Invitation Homes, which is a big landlord for single family housing, and just sell them to these big private equity firms, or I would just say Wall Street, for pennies on the dollar. Maybe, 50 cents on the dollar, 80 cents on the dollar, something like that. So the problem is, look, many people want supply to come on the market because they obviously want to afford to get a home. And in basic supply and demand, the more supply there is to meet the demand, prices will probably find an equilibrium. But the problem we're having now is we've just not seen this supply come on the market, to Rick's problem. Gothamist Soon says, hey Tom, Corcoran broker in New York City said 25% of buyers canceled their contracts. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it because, you know, and this is why I always covered on the stream the not existing home sales, but earnings reports, quarterly earnings reports from home builders, because it will forecast all of that stuff. And if you've been watching the streams, we covered Toll Brothers earnings, we covered Invitation Homes, or I would say more along the lines of like Toll Brothers and other single family home builders. They've told us this on the earnings conference calls, right? They're like, we're having to spend more money not to get new deals closed, but to keep existing deals from canceling. So I think it's imperative that if you're looking to buy a house or get into real estate, you gotta really pay attention to these home builders, number one, as they report their earnings. But number two, you really gotta pay attention to the housing start data and the permit data, because that will give you a forecast into how much new supply is gonna come onto the market. Hey, JR says, you're right, Tom. They will never sell to the public at those discounted prices. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I think Wall Street is going to get the first look at it for sure. Here's some boats here. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and hit the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams about 5 days a week between New York City and Miami. We'd love to have you guys along for the ride. Funny Monkeys, the same as 2008. A recession started, too much real estate greed, driving prices higher. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of comparisons to 2008. I think there's some big differences, but in general, I think you're going to see housing prices come down, obviously. I mean, they have to, right? If the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is now 7.3%, it's 100%. It's just the fact that if you're looking for a home, right, if you're budgeting for a home at $400,000 at 3%, and now rates have jumped up 100%, well, you're totally priced out of the market. Check out this view of the Aston Martin building. If you look at that sort of big concrete structure sticking from the top, I think that's going to be a pool. It's going to be an amazing, amazing pool. Yeah, from up here the wind is crazy. You can see all the flags flying in the breeze. Hey Rafed, good to see you. Yeah, Billy, this is the same bridge. So if you notice on a Friday night, you have tons of cars coming over the bridge to go to Brickell. Because in Brickell, that's where the majority of the nightlife is here in Miami. I would say a lot of the more newer developed nightlife. And it looks like they actually have the Christmas lights up already, which is kind of crazy. Hey, C, thank you so much. Appreciate the support. Wow, Deep Value Alex says there's going to be a pool and a helipad at the top of the roof. What's up with all these developers in Miami that are putting helipads at the top of almost every new construction? I think we have a helipad at the top of the 1000 Museum building too, which is always convenient if you want to take your helicopter, just casually land it on the roof. I think that's probably what I'll start to do. Diamond Dave says, good evening, Tom. I'm here On 2nd Street, my daughter's condo, watching you on my phone. Wow, very cool. So 2nd Street, I'm assuming in New York, right? How is the weather in New York tonight for all of our New Yorkers? Lemonade says, do you feel safe in Miami? Yeah, I mean, this place is great. This place is fantastic. Rick K says the Fed was way too aggressive on the rate increases. The focus should be on reducing the money supply through QT, reduce government spending and tax increases by federal government, along with moderate interest rate increases. So I agree with you, obviously, that the main issue is the money supply. But that would mean going back on all this Keynesian economic nonsense, right? And that's just not going to happen. You know, the central banks, it's not in their best interest to kill inflation, right? Not to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's not in their best interest to do anything about inflation. It's their best interest to, you know, be the lender and the buyer of last resort. Now, I think interest rates do need to go up, right, over time. Because, and I said this last night, this isn't normal. So a lot of people think, oh my gosh, you know, interest rates are going up. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates again for the 4th consecutive time, to 75 basis points, bringing the Fed funds rate to 4% or just under 4%. This is crazy. Well, it's not normal to live in an environment with artificially suppressed rates, right? You need to let rates normalize here, because what this has done, a lot of this SERP that I like to call it, this zero interest rate policy, it's created a lot of zombie companies. So if anybody's familiar, if you, you know, just look at a lot of the companies in the Russell 2000. You know, these are small companies, a lot of them not profitable. They probably shouldn't even be around. But the only reason why they are around is because they can continuously, in perpetuity, borrow more money at low interest rates to service their existing debt and to pay their employees and all that stuff. But when interest rates go up, they're not going to be able to do that anymore. This business plan doesn't work. So I think it's just sort of back to the basics. And I think, you know who said this best, or I would say better than anybody else? It was Orlando Bravo, who is the founder of Thoma Bravo. It's a very, very notable private equity firm. And he said, look, it's going to be back to business, or back to basics. So if you're looking to make an investment, well, what is the number one thing that matters? It's earnings. It's not revenue growth anymore, right? So I actually think we're getting back to normal. But getting back to normal is going to cause a ridiculous amount of pain. And it already has. I mean, some of these growth stocks are down 90%. Wow, so it looks like they're just putting up the Christmas lights now here in Miami. So we have very few pine trees here. So it's not your typical Christmas tree. We use palm trees as our Christmas trees. Hey, Joan K is here. Hey, Joan, good to see you. Trust you're well. I think we may get a little bit of a rainstorm here tonight. Quick passing shower. Ah, we just made it under the cover here. Good thing I brought my umbrella. Deja Vu is here, welcome. Wow, somebody says tornadoes were insane. You know, we actually had some tornadoes here in Miami-Dade County during Hurricane Ian, surprisingly. Dusty Cole says, Tom, so you don't think Keynesian economics will help at all? So I'm more of Milton Friedman type of guy, honestly. His type of economic theory. I don't really like, Keynesian, if you want to read a good book, now I've read it many times, but it's called The General Theory. I'm sure a lot of people in finance or maybe some economists in the chat have read that, The General Theory. Ethan R says, Tom, what are your predictions on how Miami will respond to rising sea levels? I think it's a good question. Now, I think there's only one way they can respond, right? Which is building massive pump systems. And still, that doesn't even work. So here's a big issue that we have to deal with here, especially in Brickell. So it'll be a beautiful day. It'll be sunshine, no rain, and you'll have water coming up through the grates. Not everywhere, mainly in Brickell, and it's a big issue. So what they try to do is install like a pumping system to push the water back out into the bay. Because the thing about Miami that I don't think a lot of people understand is the problem is the water comes up through the ground, if that makes sense. And the reason for that is because it's all very porous, like limestone. It's not like in New York City where it's a different type of bedrock, right? Here, it's all very like porous sponge limestone. So the water literally comes up through the floor. And it's a big issue. And it's not something that you could solve for. The way I like to think about it is, how can you adapt to the situation? How can you adapt to that environment? And if there's one thing that history has taught us, it's that humans are very good at adapting to things and not really preventing so much. So I think it's an issue, right? I think everybody agrees it's an issue. And, there's a lot of smart people, a lot of smart engineers that are working on this issue. And so far, it seems as if the only sort of solution is to build pumps and to raise the roads. That's really been the only two solutions so far. Hey, Rachel Abreu says the Army is planning to build a wall on the ocean, but obviously the city officials disagree because it will drive away tourism and investments. Yeah, I read about that too. Now, we have a similar problem going on in Manhattan, right? Essentially, anytime you have a major city on a waterway, and pretty much throughout history, civilizations, the greatest civilizations were built on waterways, whether that be, oceans, lakes, rivers, for obvious reasons, right? I don't think I need to give you a big history lesson, but the problem is, when you have things like hurricanes, natural disasters, you think about Hurricane Sandy that happened, that a lot of us New Yorkers lived through. New York City is still dealing with the impacts from Hurricane Sandy, if you could believe that. Look what just happened here in Florida with Hurricane Ian. I think this was one of the worst hurricanes we've gotten so far here in the state of Florida. Now, it didn't impact Miami, thank God, but it did impact places like Fort Myers, Florida. I think the storm surge, or the official storm surge in Fort Myers, was 11 feet tall. Now, that's insanity, and that does devastating damage. And I think the storm surge during Hurricane Sandy was very similar. I mean, you had all water in the subways. You had pretty much all of Long Beach, New York, was underwater. For those of you who are familiar with Long Island, parts of Queens. So it's a big issue. It's a big issue. Yeah, Western Mass Dave says, I believe it, Tom. I saw what Sandy did. It was terrible. Yeah, I mean, we actually just passed the anniversary of Hurricane Sandy, didn't we? Nicholas Duras says, hey Tom, did you hear that New York City now has fast ferry service? There are many ferry stations across the city now. Well, I knew we always had ferry. I'm not sure what a fast ferry is, but I'll check it out. Yeah, Funny Monkey says build canals like Venice. People can sail their boats on the streets. Companies will make amphibious vehicles. Well, isn't that technically what Elon Musk is doing with the Cybertruck? Assuming it could potentially float a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be... I mean, there's only one... I guess it's the cost of living in paradise, right? Any desirable place... Now think about it. Any desirable place in the United States, let's just talk about the United States for a minute, is almost very prone to natural disaster, right? Can you think of one big desirable place that isn't at any threat for like the effects of climate change or any big natural disaster like a hurricane or, you know, forest fires? Hey, photos from around New York. Good to see you. So we are outside the Brickell City Center, and I actually work out of this WeWork building sometimes. Very nice building. Yeah, Golden Dawn says Hurricane Michael was such bad devastation. Paul Matty, it's good to see you. All right, let's cross here. Ryan Royal says, even if you move inland, you have to worry about tornadoes and lightning strikes. Yeah, I think you just have to mitigate your risk anywhere you go. Ooh, I think the fire alarm is going off here. Ooh, yikes. So it looks like they built a Christmas tree out of, what is this? Maybe bourbon barrels, I think. Let's check that out. So I think this is going to be the Miami Christmas tree this year. It's his old number 7. Interesting. Hey, Ron Young, what's up, dude? Good to see you. Zozo Bob. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I realized about being in Miami, it rains every day, but only for like 15-20 minutes, and then it stops. Yeah, Troy Atman's like a Jack Daniels Christmas tree. All right, so we are now in Brickell, which is where a lot of the nightlife happens here in Miami. And the rents are also extremely, extremely crazy. You could compare the rents here to that in New York City. I'll show you guys my 2 favorite apartment buildings here. Yeah, Rachel Abreu is like, Miamians know the weather is bipolar. You know, the good news is tomorrow's going to be an amazing day here in Miami. I think it's going to be like 80 degrees, bright sunshine. MY says, what's the rent in downtown Miami for a one-bedroom apartment? Well, it depends. I've seen one bedrooms go for, you know, 25, 2,700, depending on the building. Now, if it's a very, very luxurious building, then it's probably going to be more. But I would say, I don't know, you could probably get a one-bedroom, one-bathroom apartment in downtown Miami in a pretty nice place. Probably $2,300 to $2,500. Let's cross this way. But tomorrow I'm going to be spending the majority of the day doing a lot of yard work around the house. Because I rented my place out on Airbnb, and now I got to do a lot of yard work. You know, speaking of Airbnb, they actually reported a pretty decent quarter. And you know what was interesting? So on Airbnb's earnings call, they said something that most people wouldn't agree with, but I think they make a pretty valid point. They said that should we go into a recession and the economy takes a big nosedive, that is going to be very bullish for the business at Airbnb. Now, here's their reasoning, and I actually think it may make sense. And the reasoning goes like this. Because all of the people who just recently purchased homes in 2020 and 2021, if we go into recession and those particular individuals lose their jobs, well, they're going to be looking for a way to keep up on their mortgage payments, and that could force them or prompt them into putting some of their spare bedrooms on Airbnb, or even renting out the entire house on Airbnb for some months. And I think that's actually like spot on. That's what I do. Now, I don't do it for that reason, but if you rent out your house on Airbnb for just a couple days out of the month, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to cover the cost of your mortgage, right? So let's say if you live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single-family home, you live in one bedroom and you rent out the other 2. It is very, very possible that you can completely cover your entire cost of living and even cash flow the property a little bit, depending on how aggressive you get. So I think it's a pretty good point. Now, I think they had record revenues in the quarter, and they actually were profitable, which was good. Yeah, that's true. So somebody said New York City has very strict Airbnb rules. Same thing here in Miami. So if you're gonna buy a place specifically to do short-term rental, you really, really have to check with the local rules and regulations, or you could really find yourself in a lot of trouble and totally lose all your money on your investment. So if you're buying in a place like South Beach, if you're buying in a place like Brickell, I would say there's about an 80% chance that you can't do short-term rental, right? They're probably not going to allow it for obvious reasons, because a big issue that happened in South Beach, obviously everybody knows what South Beach is, huge tourist area here in Miami. The issue there is this. A lot of people were taking advantage and Airbnb-ing out pretty much their entire neighborhoods, all their condominiums, and it was disturbing the peace, so to speak. So if you're looking to get into short-term rental investing, you got to make sure your local laws will allow it. Al Baker says Airbnb are destroying residential neighborhoods in South Florida. interesting. I think I disagree. Now, if you do Airbnb in an appropriate and respectful way, I don't think so. But if you rent it out to sort of party goers and party animals, then yeah, it could be, you know, not a good look. But I think that's with anything, right? That's with anything. Hey, the Mighty Bull is here. It's happy Friday, Tom. Good to see you, the Mighty Bull. Welcome to Miami, Florida. Hopefully you're having a good one. So speaking of real estate development here in Florida, this entire building in Maribrico Village is going to be completely knocked down. And it's going to build, they're going to build a super tall luxury, I think a mixed use building, apartments, and maybe some office space too. Sorry about that. Hey, RS, good to see you. Welcome. John Silva. So this is my favorite view over here with the rainbow colors all on the wall here. Now, I think if you wanted to rent an apartment in any one of these buildings, I think you're looking at minimum $3,000 a month. Somebody says, is Miami safe to walk through at night? Yeah, extremely safe. Now, here's the biggest contrast that I see between Miami, Florida, and New York City. I guess depending on the location you're at, right? It is very, very clean. And there's almost no homeless people. Now, we do have issues here in Miami as well with homeless and things like that, but you can't even compare it to cities like New York, and they keep it very, very clean and safe here. So that's a plus. The streets, there's very, very seldom will you see garbage and trash on the street. Everything is spotless clean. And I noticed the law enforcement is very strict here. Very, very strict. Hey, Photos from Around New York says, what are your thoughts on the Federal Reserve's rate hike? Yeah, so I mean, we got a 75 basis point rate hike. And, you know, even though Fed Chair Jerome Powell said there is a possibility of only a 50 basis point rate hike in December, I think the biggest thing that we have to sort of take away from that speech is it doesn't really matter the rate of those rate hikes. What matters is the duration and how long rates are going to stay elevated. And Fed Chair Jerome Powell says it's going to be a lot longer than he first anticipated. So I think we need to stay cognizant of that. And I think that's why the markets took a big hit. Because many people were expecting a Fed pivot, which I don't think we're going to get. And we definitely didn't get. What we did get was, okay, the duration of these rate hikes may ease up a little bit and go to 50 basis point rate hikes. But rates are going to stay elevated for a prolonged period of time. Yeah, that's true. So I think we're headed towards the Bright Line. All right, the dark horse, I understand that you have like this rage thirst to tell everybody your political opinions, which I respect, but I just want to keep the politics to a minimal. That's all. We know you're a Republican. We get it. We appreciate it. I respect it, but it seems you have this overwhelming rage thirst to tell us every night, and sometimes it riles up the chat. John Silva says, "Hey Tom, do you prefer New York or Miami?" So I prefer New York City in the summer and the spring, but in the winter I prefer Miami all day, every day. Just because it's beautiful. I mean, I just don't really like the cold too much. The dark horse is just facts. No, I understand. It's just the thing is, you got to understand my perspective. It gets the chat riled up, and it's not really what we're here for. It's not really a political channel. All right, I'm going to take you guys down here and to the left. I'm going to complete a loop around the other side. We never walk down this way. Troy Atman says, "Tom, you're a snowbird at 27. I don't know. Would you guys consider this a snowbird? Now, I think I will say this. I'll probably be spending more time in Miami, Florida in the winter months, like January, February. At least I'm going to try. But I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm a full-on snowbird just yet. Somebody says, "Tom, how long are you going to be in Miami?" Well, I'll definitely be back for the holidays, right? I'm going to see my family, have a dinner with the family and stuff like that. Hey, Charlie Richardson, what's up, my friend? Good to see you. Welcome. Out and About says, "Cheers, good to see you back in Miami." Yeah, Out and About, we got to get you down here. The one thing I'll say is this, if anybody could, and this is sort of maybe a productivity hack, I've noticed this over the years. Now, you guys know I worked my entire adult working life in New York City. And New York, it gets very, very brutally cold in the winters. And the problem is, if you're working any type of like banking job or sales job, the problem is you go to work, it's dark. You come home from work, it's extremely dark. And that tends to weigh on you a lot. And you almost don't notice that your body is getting extremely run down and you're mentally taxed. But once you sort of spend some time away from a big city, now Miami is a big city, right? But I wouldn't say, I don't really like to compare it to New York. If you spend some time away from a big city during like the depressing winter months, and you get to see the sunshine every day, and it's just, the sun is out, you start to realize like crazy amount of changes to your body and your mental health in general. I don't know how to explain it. It's quite weird. I don't sort of know how to explain it, but your energy levels go up significantly, and I think your outlook on life is better. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I like the hot weather. I like it hot and humid, but it's just, you feel different. Your body doesn't ache so much from being in the cold. It's weird. It's weird. Try it. If you guys are from a city where it's freezing in the winter, take a 2-week you know, try to work remote for 2 weeks in, you know, maybe California, right? LA. That's a great city too. I know William Brooklyn says, I work construction, I freeze every winter, and I'm pushing 50 years old. So William Brooklyn, I've always said this. I don't think you could get a tougher individual than a New York City construction worker, especially the iron workers. I mean, these people are so tough. So I'll tell you a quick story. So I used to work in Lower Manhattan, right on Wall Street. My office was 82 Wall Street, okay? And they were building a massive development right across the street from the Andaz Hotel. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that. Anyway. And I would look out the window of my office and I would see all of the iron workers, and it is snowing like crazy and the wind is insane. And these people are putting huge steel I-beams together while I'm sitting in a heated office. And I told myself in that day, and I said, I will never ever complain about my job ever. Never, not once. I don't care if a client is hammering me. I don't care if I lose a $1 million deal. I refuse from that day to complain about my job ever. Because there's people that are working out in the elements, doing actual real manual labor, and that I respect. I respect that a ridiculous amount. So these are my two favorite buildings here. Roll M. This is 100% spot on with the assessment of mental state of mind between winter in New York City versus Miami. The dark drags on you, everything you think about. Yeah, and I think it's actually a real thing, right? Isn't it called a seasonal depression? I think that may be actually like a real diagnosis. And I think it's due to, I think it may be due to a lack of sunlight exposure, right? Maybe a vitamin D deficiency, perhaps. I don't know. So if you guys come to Brickell, you gotta go to this restaurant. If you take a client out to dinner or something like that, it's an Argentine restaurant. They have great steaks here. One of my favorite places. Tailwind 777 says, I'm better in California. I want to go to California. I'd like to go to LA. I'd like to go to LA. I've never been there before. Wow, Western Mass Dave says it's called SAD, and it is real. Golden Dawn says, yes, SAD, I know friends who have it. And I think a lot of New York City office workers in general get it, right? Because think about it. If I used to take, I'll tell you guys my exact commute. I think you guys would get a kick out of this. Hey, Lee is here. Good to see you, Lee. So I used to take the 5:25 train every single day from Massapequa Park on Long Island all the way to Penn Station, okay? And then I would transfer at Penn Station and I would go all the way down to Wall Street. So I would take the 2 train all the way down to Wall Street. And I would wake up, it's pitch black. I would get to the city, it's pitch black. And then I would get out of the office at like 7 o'clock at night and it's pitch black. And you never see the sun, it's snowing, it's raining. And after maybe 3 months of that, I don't know, your body just starts to feel a little weird. Your energy levels drop, at least for me. I didn't have any energy. And I just, almost sometimes, like on the weekends, I couldn't even get out of bed. I was just so, almost like demoralized. It was strange. I don't know. Hey, Jason Francis, good to see you. Greg is here. So San Francisco would be better. Yeah, I would visit San Francisco. Hey, FredX says it's what you're used to. I get grumpy and tired in the hot weather. Yeah, that's true too, FredX. I mean, some people hate Florida weather. Jerry says, Tom, try San Diego. I definitely love to try San Diego. Oh, look at all the bikers out tonight. Hey, Latha's here. Says hello, Tom, and everybody just popping into the chat. Wow, and you're in Milwaukee. Well, good luck in Milwaukee. So I think this is a very famous club here. Seems like a lot of people are lined up to get in. The line is pretty long. All right, let's try to go back this way. Because just like that, we lost track of time again. I think we've already been streaming for 2 hours. So we'll have to walk back to the downtown location. But it's cool to see Brickell on a Friday night. The weekends here is crazy. A lot of people out. You know, I've noticed recently, I think there's a lot more snowbirds now that it's November. Hey, the rally car stackers, what's up, my friend? So we were talking about Starbucks earnings today. This is the Starbucks I went in today. I had to get a hot cup of coffee. You couldn't even stand in there. It was so packed with people. Starbucks reported a great quarter, by the way. Ah, Layda, okay. Yeah, so maybe it's more normal than I think. The seasonal sort of depression. I don't like calling it depression because I wasn't like depressed, right? I just didn't have any energy. Like I had like zero, almost like none. So this is the Shake Shack. Once again, this is Mary Brickell Village. Rally cars, the Fed will pivot soon. I don't know. I think they're going to be pretty steadfast with the rate increases, I think. Hey, marketing videography says, Tom, go to the Starbucks in Seoul, South Korea. It's like being in someone's living room. You don't want to leave the place. It's huge. Dude, I may have to do that. You know, I may be in Korea the second week of January. So I'm going to have to check that out. Now, marketing videography, one of the things that came out of the earnings report in Starbucks, the good thing is that same store sales across the board globally were up. However, they did mention the zero COVID policy in China posing a big issue to revenue growth, and I think that's going to persist. But supposedly, even though same-store sales were up about 7%, the vast majority of those revenue increases wasn't really because traffic has gone up in a lot of the Starbucks stores. It's because across the board, prices have increased about 6% year over year. So if you're ordering a drink or even the food, I'm not sure if anybody's gotten any of the food at Starbucks, that's up across the board about 6%. Now, also depending on where you go too, what I noticed is when I used to work in Midtown Manhattan, I would get a coffee, you know, across the street sometimes. And I noticed the prices are a little bit different in Midtown Manhattan as they are, let's say, all the way on the Upper West Side or Upper East Side or something like that. So I think they have volume pricing, maybe for like touristy locations or tourist areas. All right, so we are now looking at the KPMG building. Another sort of fast casual place, Chipotle, ticker symbol CMG. Now, the interesting thing is we talked about Wingstop. Wingstop is trading at, I think, near a new all-time record high, at least at near 52-week highs. But it seems like a lot of the restaurant brands and a lot of the fast casual restaurants are outperforming the broader markets. Obviously, tech has been getting crushed. You know, two companies in particular that reported earnings recently, Twilio, getting hammered. I think it's down 90% from all-time record highs. Also Atlassian, which is the Australian software company. I think that's down 80% now from all-time record highs, and 20% just yesterday alone, dropping 25% off the back of their earnings report. Now, I think the main reason why it had such a drastic decline is because Atlassian has a lot of free customers, right? And what they try to do is convert those free subscriptions to paid, and they saw a drastic drop off in the amount of free. Good to see you. All right, you guys look great. Walks in Wall Street.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Walks Wall Street. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. So yeah, I would just be cognizant of that. Zoom Info, I would say, had a good quarter. So Zoom Info, ticker symbol ZI. Now the CEO is Henry Schuck, who I've met before. Good guy. Here's the issue with that. They have about a $17 billion valuation on about $250 million worth of revenue quarterly. And that's still after the 25% earnings decline. So, I mean, you just do the math there on a price to sales basis, on a price to earnings basis. Still very expensive. Very, very expensive. Mike Skate TV, what's up, man? Good to see you. So this is right outside the Brickell City Center. Now I think it was 3 or 4 months ago, there was actually a pretty big fire in this building here to the right. I'm not sure what caused it, but if I had to take a guess, it was probably a kitchen fire. You know, we'll go this way because it's easier for me to get on the Metromover to head out. But if you guys enjoyed the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. Also, hit the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams about 5 days a week between New York City and Miami, discussing the financial markets. Yeah, I always forget, there's always a massive line outside of this place. Deep Value Alex says, hey Tom, do you know anything of the Davos agenda? Or what's the purpose of it? I mean, it's a lot of powerful and very, very rich people getting together to discuss pretty much the global economy. Troy Atman says, what kind of car is it? I'm not sure, actually. Maybe, I think it's a Ferrari, maybe. But the Metromover's over here, and I think I need to jump on if I want to get my bus. Now, I saw an article, and I think it may have been you, Deep Value Alex, that told us about this. So the new, Rolls-Royce is supposedly coming out with an EV, and I think it's all sold out, right? I think they're all accounted for. Or I would say the pre-orders is, I would say, more than originally had expected. Now, what does that say about the health of the luxury market? Guy's not happy. Leda, that is true. I am on the lookout for the charcoal / matte black Teslas. I think those are my favorite by far. I'd take that over a Rolls Royce any day, I think. I don't think I'd really be a Rolls Royce kind of guy. Zozo Bob's Tom, take us on the Metro Mover. I think we may do that tomorrow. There's a ton of people in downtown Brickell. Now, there's another thing. I don't drive, so. Al Baker says I would take the Rolls Royce and sell it and buy 5 Teslas. That's true. So this is 801 Brickell. Hey, Natalie says, hello, Tom and team. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you too. We are here in the, I guess you can consider the Wall Street of Miami. LATAM Wall Street. This is the W Hotel and Residences. I think if I had to rent a place down here, it'd probably be in the W Hotel and Residences. Something about the building is very unique. Now, last time I looked at the prices here, it was about $3,500 a month to rent a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. I think that's too much, in my opinion. Hey, Fanny says it's beautiful indeed. I've never been out of Texas. You got to come to Miami. It's a great city. All right, let's attempt to cross without getting knocked off by a car. Wow, the dark horse. I lived in the W in Los Angeles for 3 months. Great experience. Yeah, man, I mean, you know, the lobby in that building looks incredible too. Looks unreal. Yeah, Joseph Hardaway says, Tom, the mayor has been trying to get businesses to move to Miami a couple of years now. Yeah, well, I think the biggest one that they locked down is Citadel Securities. Which is a big hedge fund. So they're just putting up the Christmas lights. So do you guys think, what do you guys think in the chat? Is it too early to be putting up Christmas lights? Or do you think this is right on time? What do you think? Wow. I think they did a really good job though. Yeah, Troy Atmans is too early. Yeah, I think it may be too early too. Well, the day I left New York, they already had the Christmas tree at Radio City Music Hall. Now, not to be confused with the main Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center. I'm talking about the Christmas tree that's on top of Radio City. Whoa, it looks like they're actually assembling this massive wreath that goes atop of the building here. So this is gonna be a massive holiday wreath here. So I think they're gonna put this thing right here. I think they did a pretty good job here. Yeah, the problem here in Miami is I don't think we have too many pine trees, so we're resorted to decorate the palms. But I think it still looks pretty good. But team, we already are at the 2-hour mark. It was a fun stream tonight. Walking around, got to check out a lot of stuff. For the people who just joined, we did briefly talk about the Bank of England. I think I'm gonna talk about it a little more. I wanted to talk about it a lot more tonight, but that's okay. Obviously, we talked about the Federal Reserve a lot with Fed Chair Jerome Powell, but the Bank of England also had a 75 basis point rate increase as well. And there were a couple of disturbing comments coming out of the mouth of Andrew Bailey, who is the governor of the Bank of England. He said, and I quote, "It is going to be a very, very tough road ahead. The sharp rise in energy prices has made us extremely poorer as a nation." And this is all in a time when UK inflation is about 10.5%. So if you want to listen to the entire speech of Andrew Bailey, please type !BOE in the chat. And I would take some time out of your weekend to take a look at that and watch it. But that is all the time we have for tonight on Walks on Wall Street in Miami. I want everybody to have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy your Saturday. Try to get out to the beach. Try to enjoy the sun. And we will see you all tomorrow. Maybe from South Beach. We'll have to see. So if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. Leave a like on the video, and we will see you all tomorrow. Have an unbelievable weekend and stay safe, everybody. Out and about. Laytha, Charlie Richardson, FredX, Love is Kind, Lemonade, 2 Explorers videos, Tom G, appreciate it. Teresa Diaz, to the Mighty Bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere, and you just need to know where to look. Have a safe, healthy, and productive weekend. I'll see you guys tomorrow.